Hey guys, welcome to TST Garage. I'm Bart, and today in this video, I'll be showing you how to install the TST Industries brake light modulator on your bike. Now, a brake light modulator, sometimes called a strobe, sometimes called a brake light flasher, what it does is basically enables you to install some electronics on your bike so that when you press your brakes, the brake light flashes in some kind of pattern and alerts the drivers behind you that you will be stopping. Our particular brake light modulator comes pre-wired to a plug that interfaces with a sub harness that we provide specific to your bike model that enables plug-and-play functionality with your bike. So that means that the installation is really fast and you can do it yourself. Now, the electronics inside, we do have the ability for you to program this unit to 3 different functions and then subsequently adjust the rate of the effect to your liking. Our first programmable mode is strobe alert. This mode will produce 9 flashes and then stay solid for the duration of the brake engagement. Second one is intermittent pulsar. Each cycle will flash 10 times and then pause. And then these cycles will repeat for the duration of the brake engagement. The last available option is pulsar, and this one just basically provides continuous flashing for the duration of the brake engagement. Now we'll show you how to install this. It's really simple. And then after the installation chunk, I will show you in detail how to get inside here, how to program the different modes, and how to alter the rate of those different modes. We did think about the safety of such devices during the design phase. So we decided to design this in a way that it will be a pass-through component. In case you experience a failure on board here, it will just pass through your normal brake function, which means you press your brake light lights up, there's just no effect. In case you do experience that failure, we do offer a warranty, so we have guys standing by in our support department that will take your call, email, Facebook message, whatever, and we'll get you replaced. And that's pretty much it. I'm really excited to show you guys just how easy this is to put on and configure. So let's get started. All right, here we have a Honda Rebel 1100. We will be demonstrating our brake light modulator installation using the universal harness. We do not have specific connectors for the actual connectors that work with this bike. Honda has changed their connectors to some new wild shape. We don't have those yet in early 2022, so we will be making use of the universal setup that we sell on tstindustries.com. This comes with the harness itself and a connector set that will match the connector housings and terminals on the harness itself and will need to be pinned out on the actual wires under the seat. It's fairly simple. I will show you exactly how to do that. We'll arm ourselves with the printout of the installation instruction help from our website right in the universal brake light modulator page. This is printable. You can access that at tstindustries.com. There's some info on there that is visual that I will be going over and referencing. So it's good for you guys to have this in hand while you're following my directions. All right, let's grab the seat off the bike and get started. Looking from the top here, we have several fasteners that we need to remove to gain access under this tray. There are 2 fasteners here and there are 2 here. Top ones will take a number 2 Phillips. They will spin on you unless you lock the base down. Once you hold the base down, they'll actually come up. The head will come up and you'll be able to take that out. Looks like this. There's a matching one on the left side of the bike. Same procedure. The ones below here, we'll take a number 3 Phillips. These are steel fasteners. There are 2 of them. You extract both of them, and then the tray is free to come up. Lift up on the rear and swing out upwards to the rear. Now with access under here, we will identify the looms coming from our fender lighting back there. They're on the left side. Here there are 2 of them. Pull up on it. You will likely clear the geometry here that is meant for routing all these wires. There's cable management clips down there that if you just pull up on it, they flex out of the way likely. They'll let you take this out. Now, let's identify the loom that we're going to be working with. There's a 2-conductor connector here that does not interest us. I believe that is the license plate light. There is a 3-conductor loom that terminates in one 2-conductor housing and another. Now the green on the Honda is just ground. The brown is running light, and the green with a yellow trace is the brake light wire. In my intro, I did say that Honda has rolled out with some wild looking connectors. Here they are. What we're going to do is chop right up here, and we will use the components from our universal kit to crimp on these terminals, install the housings, and then have a connection here that can work with or without the brake light modulator. Should you ever choose to go away from using the brake light modulator, you disconnect it, you plug this back in. Since this is a matching set, no big deal, really simple. So now it's going to be important to grab our installation sheet and our harness. This step is very, very important. You can see here we have 2 different connectors, here and here. The 4-conductor connector goes into our brake light modulator, so that's not of any concern at the moment. The direction in which this is laid and installed is very important. The one here with the tab says to tail light, and this says in from the harness. In from the harness will be from the side of these connectors, and out to tail light will be out towards here. This is very important because if you install this backwards, the brake light modulator will not work properly for you, and it will require repinning the connectors, and that's just a pain in the butt. Let's not go through that. Let's do it right the first time. So again, output to tail light and in from harness. Now, what wire do we wire in? Ground from Honda goes to our black. The green with yellow trace, which is brake, goes to our yellow. Yellow trace to yellow. And then the brown to blue. B to B, yellow trace to yellow, and then green to black. What I'm going to do is grab a cutting device and get into this sheath here. You could use scissors, a knife, whatever your choice is. Make sure that you grab all the wires that are inside this loom and pass them to one side, and make sure that the side you're going to be trimming has no wires in it. You don't want to cut that wire just yet. Let's leave that for a little bit later. All right. Once this is nibbed, you could pull it apart. Now, I chose kind of an arbitrary spot down the middle. That's okay. You know, you could go closer to here if you'd like. Choice is up to you. Now, we're going to need some extra length of wire sticking out of here. We're going to trim some of this sheathing. I'm just going to use scissors at this point because I find that a little bit easier. I'm going to take off about 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches from each side. All right, here we go. Now, let's go ahead and validate that where we're going to cut the wire is okay for us. I do think that with our harness, we'll have plenty of length to go down below here. Yep. Let's chop it right down the middle. Just like that. And now, let's go ahead and strip about 1/4 inch to 3/8 of wire sheathing the insulation off of the actual wires. I want to point your attention to the several different components that come in the connector kit. We have your female housing that houses male terminals, and your male housing that houses female terminals. So 3 of these come with this connector, 3 of these come with this connector. Now, let's concentrate on one side at a time. We're going to go out to tail light. Since we are pinning out to tail light on this guy, we need to match it with this connector, right? This one has a tab. We will need the one that has a window to match it. Since that's the one that matches it on this side, we are going to go with the terminals, the female terminals that go in the male plug. These are the components we're working with. So as I mentioned earlier, there are 3 of these terminals that we need to terminate the wires with. They are crimp type. I have specific crimpers that I use for this type of terminal. If you do not have those, you could use standard crimpers that are available from stores like Home Depot, Lowe's, electrical supplies. You'll just have to carefully make sure that the blades that are supposed to form around the wire and come down on it actually clamp on and hold the wire securely. We'll do a tug test. If that comes out, you'll need to redo that connection. If you are not getting a really good crimp connection using one of these crimpers, please solder that pin on. If you have a loose contact, it'll bite you in the butt down the line, it'll disconnect, and you won't have a taillight that's working, all right? So let's go ahead and perform the crimping now. What I like to do is twist a wire. They are stranded, so I just twist them around so they keep on axis. Then I fold it over ever so slightly to look like this. Mostly copper over copper with a little bit sticking back over the insulation. What that does is gives me ample girth here to go inside this crimping set of crimping surfaces, and it ensures that it actually stays in there. So I'm going to use my tool here since it's proper. Maybe what I'll do is try one of these with a regular domestic crimper. I just call it domestic crimper because most people don't buy these. These are electronic type service crimpers. Okay, now important note, to make the longer crimping surface goes on the wire and the shorter crimping surface goes on the insulation. This is a strain relief crimp. It just prevents the wires inside from being the only thing that's clamped. You just have a redundant clamping surface here that prevents this from being extracted and the wires from being able to twist back and forth or bend back and forth, resulting in breakage. All right, so now I'm going to attempt the third one using this domestic style crimper. Again, there is a set of blade-like structures here. They need to come up and over and crimp down on the wire like that. They need to curl over. So I'm going to pick a set of crimping surfaces on this guy that can potentially do that for me. Okay, so I found a set of jaws here that works. It's the 22 to 18 gauge range. Crimping surfaces here. I'm gonna give it a tug test. It actually does a pretty good job. You just got to make sure that the entire surface is pressed. So you have to go up and down that entire length here, and that'll do it for you. Now let's get the last surface here crimped. It's not as neat as using the other crimper, but I think it is good enough. Now let's get our housing on. So for that purpose, what we're gonna do is just match the housing into here. I'm not gonna lock it all the way in, I'm gonna keep it out. And again, black goes into solid green. Please do not insert solid green till you've verified that it does not have the yellow trace on it. Could be a pain in the butt to remove if you insert the wrong one in there. Okay, now blue, remember, B to B, brown to blue. And then the remaining one, yellow trace to yellow. And now we've made the connection. That's good to go. Let's grab the other crimps and crimp them onto this end of things here. Twist the wires first. Here I'm going to follow the same exact procedure that I followed to crimp on the terminals on the other side of the connector, so I'm not going to get too much into detail. It's the same thing, just with slightly different crimps. All right, so like in the previous step, we are going to match our connector here to make sure that we get the correct wires to the correct wires. Let's find a solid green here and plug it into our black. Now, depending on how you press these terminals on, they may be a little tough to get all the way in. Find that using small nose pliers from the inside to pull up and away will usually set the pins in place. If they were just a tiny bit tight in there, trick I've developed. All right, now brown to blue. Now these crimps are developed in a way that they do have a ratcheting clip on one side. You have to make sure that that goes into its keyway. On this particular plug, it's on that side. If it's giving you trouble going in, try reversing it, spinning it 180 degrees around its axis, and you'll likely be successful. All right, before we go ahead and plug any of our other components in, what I like to do is show you guys the pass-through version of this installation. If you ever decide to take off your brake light modulator, you just plug this back in and you're back to OEM spec. You can test whether or not we've done a good job on the connections here. We have running light and we have brake light. I've just verified that, so that's good to go. So at this point, we grab our brake light modulator, couple it up with the harness, plugging it in, and we'll make a pass-through connection. And now at this point, we could test our brake light modulator functions before we go any farther. can see, we have done a good job here and it's actually working. Before you go any further here and install this into the bike here somewhere, fix it to a component, make sure you watch the rest of this video. It shows you how to remove the cap and make your program selections and adjust all that stuff. You want to do that before you actually mount it, because otherwise you'll have to dismount it, get in there, make your adjustments, and then mount it back up. But this is the installation portion, so we will carry it through to the end. So now it's just a matter of managing cables. You can choose to put electrical tape around these wire looms going into the connector, kind of like how the OEM is set up. In fact, let me do that real quick before we go any further. All right, now we're good. Let's proceed with the rest of this. We can find a number of places to stow the excess wires. There's a grommet here. It does pass wires through it. It's meant to keep the water out of the unit. We do still want to make sure that it's not oriented this way, having gravity feeding excess moisture in there. I want to prevent all possible modes of failure. So let's make sure that the grommet points down. Now, I think a good place to mount this guy would be here in this area next to some of this wiring. We do have a channel here that we've designed into the housing of the modulator for the purpose of using a cable tie on there. See how nicely that fits? That was purposefully designed so that you can tie this unit off to other things. Now we have some nice harnessing on this side and a nice little void here. I want to make use of that and tie it off on that side. All right, so the area I was talking about that I'd like to put this modulator is right here in this corner. We do have some nice wires here, wire looms that we could attach it to. Bring my cable tie around the 3 wire looms here. There's a major one containing a bunch of them, maybe like 8 or 12, and then several dual wire setups there. Start it so I can get my modulator body around in the area and then cinch it down. So that tray that goes in this place will be responsible for holding the whole setup here in this corner partially. So the actual wire hookup here is not too important. This will just hold it in place for me while I manipulate the tray in place. That's pretty good. I do still have these wires hanging out in sort of a haphazard way. I want to make sure that they go through the OEM cable management guide here. Stick some of that into that boot that houses the OEM wires. We're pretty good here. This looks good. Just need to make sure that we have a clear shot here for the mounting holes for the tray and these holes here. Bring the mounting tray back in. Reverse order of disassembly. Get these guys set first. This panel came out and needs to be pushed back into position. Make sure the bottom body gets in place first before you press the top down. Once everything is concentric and you feel like it's holding, then you press the top in and that locks it in place. Repeat procedure on the right side. And then we will get these screws back into their locations. Now these are shoulder screws, so when you get them in place, do not just brute force them down. What you want to do is make sure that the tray locates concentrically around these shoulders first, and then you get that to the bottom onto the frame. Otherwise you'll just clamp your tray and distort it. You want metal on metal, not metal on plastic. Now we can replace the seat, and this installation is complete. For mode selection and rate adjustment, we will need to get inside this capsule to access the electronics. These two Phillips head screws will need to be removed. What I like to do is unscrew them until they disengage from the receiving threads and leave them in the cap. Otherwise, it's pretty easy to lose them. If we pull them off with the cap, they are self-captive. All right, now we'll identify the parts here. This button is the mode selector, and this potentiometer is your rate adjuster. Clockwise is faster, counterclockwise is slower. Let's first do our selection of modes. With the brake pressed, press the button once to toggle to the next available program. Now the brake does have to be pressed so that the unit powers up, otherwise you won't be able to make the selection. If you find that you've pressed the button but the selection has not been changed, just do it again with the brake pressed. So now we will go on to the next program, press the brake once more, press the button once, and now you're in the next mode. Now we've switched twice, so pressing it one more time will return to the original mode that your unit arrived in. Now for rate adjustment, we'll be using the potentiometer. With the brake pressed, we can turn it clockwise to make it go faster, counterclockwise to decrease the rate. Now in brake alert, you will only have 9 flashes to make your adjustment, and then it'll stay solid. This one doesn't actually lend itself to really fast flashing at the top of the range. Bottom of the range is unusable, so I like to set it somewhere towards 3/4 to maybe 80% clockwise, and that does it for me. Now if we change to the next one, this one is pulsar, and this one just keeps on flashing, so I like to have it going pretty fast here. Choice is really up to you. If you want to explore the next mode, we have the intermittent pulsar. This one to me belongs somewhere close to the top of the range, makes it the most visible. But again, freedom means choice. The decision is ultimately up to you. Once you're done with your adjustment and you're where you want to be with all your modes and rates, replace the cap, turn the screws back in, and it really is just that simple. Replace your brake light modulator in the space that you decided to keep it, and you're good to go.